I often am reminding my clients, if you get to be the problem, you also get to be the solution. It is both you and not you. Hey, my name is Amanda Kaufman, and you are watching The Amanda Kaufman Show, and we are talking about failure, handling entrepreneurial failure. It's been a hot topic this week, and I can't wait to dive into it with you today because I had the extreme pleasure of being at the Coaches Summit this past week in Austin, Texas. I'm coming to you live right now. If you're watching this on Team Replay, shout out Team Replay and let me know that you saw this. And I had so much fun being in such an incredible energy with so many entrepreneurial coaches, people who are thinking about becoming coaches, people who have been coaches for years and years that are just so committed to honing their craft. And I loved talking about excellence with people. And we talked about excellence in a really powerful way. And I thought, hey, when I was when you're talking about excellence, it's really tempting to leave the other side of the coin, failure or lessons that you're learning on that journey toward excellence or developing mastery. It's really tempting to brush aside failure or brush aside the screw ups or where we didn't perform to the standard that we would love to perform to. And so I thought, hey, let's talk about it here on the show, because one of the coolest things about going to live events is being able to have all the follow-on conversations with people. I've had literal dozens and dozens of conversations with people in a more intimate setting this past week. And I've also had a lot of conversations with people in my community, in my various programs. And if you don't know, I have been helping people build their businesses and make the pivot from being an employee to, stepping full-time into being an entrepreneur. And failure is very much not just a part of that transformation, but it is very much a part of life. And so I wanted to actually take the time today to share with you 6 key principles that have helped me with my whole reframe of failure and how I experience failure, how I live into failure. So principle number 1 is that one of the reasons why we have a really hard time handling the facts of life of failure or the facts of life of performing lesser than we wanted is because of the failure to build in reflection, to build in that time to contemplate, to build in that time to reflect and say, hey, am I where I want to be? Am I producing the result, or am I achieving the outcome, or am I living into the level of ambition that I had in mind? And I'm going to give you a really simple metaphor for this. I love metaphors. Metaphors really help me understand the world. I was out for breakfast with my son this morning, and we had some time before I moved on. I went and got a haircut today. And before we finished breakfast a little sooner than we had planned. And so I had some extra time with him. So we said, oh, let's go for a drive. Let's go check out what's new in the neighborhood. And I let my son decide, like, are we going to go left? Are we going to go right? Are we going to go straight? Like, where are we going to go? And he kept telling me, I want to go left when I was in the right lane, but he would wait until we were right up to the light. He would react when we were right at the light to tell me we want to go left when we're in the right lane. And I'm in North America. So that meant that I would either have to haul butt, across traffic to make that happen, or it was too late. I was already stuck. I was committed to that lane And so I needed to either go straight or make a right turn. Left was off the table. And when I think about failure, or I think about options being available to us, which is really when you consider failure, or you consider my bank account isn't where I want it to be, or my waistline isn't what I want it to be, or my friend group isn't the way I want it to be, or my relationships aren't the way I want it to be. It's a bit like arriving at the traffic light, being in the far right lane, wanting to make a left turn. And the thing is if you had more time to move to the left lane, you could make that left turn safely, no problem. So what's the difference? The difference is being able to plan and being able to respond to the conditions that are required to move to the left lane and to be able to execute that really smoothly, versus arriving at the intersection and going, oh shit, I want to be in the left lane and here I am in the right lane. And I think, very often we frame, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, because we find ourselves in the right lane and we look over there and we're in comparison and we go, oh, I wanted to be over there and I'm over here. I've failed. But the question is, did you? Did you really fail? If you take a moment and you actually reflect, did you have the vision that you wanted to be in that place? And therefore you planned for it. You took the steps to make sure that you were in position to be able to create that reality? Or are you seeing something for perhaps the first time that you really want? So are you failing, or are you discovering? Are you discovering? And this is why it's so important to slow your mind down and go, this is the reflection piece. And sometimes we frame something as failure, and actually we never actually tried. We never actually planned. We never actually did the things that are necessary to move ourselves into the correct lane to even have that thing. So how can you be a failure if you never moved into the correct lane? So, that's reframe number one. You can't fail at something you never actually tried. But you can for sure be jealous. You can for sure have envy. You can for sure have ambition. You can for sure desire something new. We can desire to go over to that left lane, and we can realize, oh my gosh, I'm at this intersection. How am I going to get over to that intersection? That's great reflection, but that's not the same thing as failing. Failing is when you take steps and you work and you exercise a plan that doesn't work out. And so many people get into this headspace of, oh, I'm a failure. And they didn't actually do any of the work. They didn't actually have a plan. They never explored what are the requirements to move me over to that left lane. Right? So that's kind of principle idea number one. So that brings me to principle idea number two, which is it is and it isn't you. So it is and it isn't you. So let's just imagine for a second, just kind of sticking with this metaphor, you find yourself at the intersection, you want to go into the left lane, make a left turn, turns out you're stuck over in this right lane, and it's like it's super dangerous to cut over traffic, or maybe we need to go forth from where we are and we need to come up with a strategy to be able to move ourselves into a new position so that we can get where we want to go. It is and it isn't you. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is so many times, and this is me on my journey too, when I don't have what I want, it's so easy to get into the mindset of, oh, well, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. And right. And, we start reciting that Taylor Swift song and we start going, oh, well, it's because I don't deserve it, or it's because I'm not smart enough, or it's because, and we have all these explanations about why we are at the intersection we find ourselves in. And I think one of the biggest things that has really helped me move past that perception of failure, apart from taking that inventory and apart from having that reflective space, is just recognizing that many, many of those explanations don't even matter. So my motto is do what matters. And so many of the explanations for why I feel this way, or why I am this way, or why the world is this way, they're actually useless to getting over to the left lane, right? So what I mean by this is I often am reminding my clients, if you get to be the problem, you also get to be the solution. It is both you and not you. So there's a lot of energy that we put towards in our society explaining ourselves, explaining the situation, explaining the what's and the whys and the hows. And it's really about our emotional state to try to make ourselves feel better. And the thing is that you can do that, but is it necessarily going to change your circumstances? Are you going to really move to a new lane? Are you going to make new relationships by doing that? Are you going to improve your bank account by doing that? Are you going to build new knowledge? Are you going to have an improved career? Are you going to have a better business by doing that? Or do you need to take the ownership of saying, hey, there's steps that I need to learn here. There's new growth that needs to happen here. And so, yes, you were the one that drove your car to that point in the intersection for sure. You're also the person still driving the car. So now that you've identified that you want to go to a new place, you're the one who gets to make a new choice. So it both is and isn't you. And so I know that can sound a little confusing. So it takes some time. One of the biggest things that I've learned as well is that life is not a static thing. It can feel a little repetitive. It can feel like it's this static thing where you're getting to this place of arrival. So for example, when in the entrepreneurial space and building a coaching business, it's all when I get to $10,000 months. When I get to $10,000 months, let's just say, for example, you get to a $10,000 month, you achieve that goal. That's great. That's amazing. But then what do you do the next month? Do it again, right? There are activities that you're doing in your life over and over and over again that you're going to do through your productive life. And things are going to potentially change. You're going to think about how you lived 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Your life is lived in pivot. It's not about arrival. And so when we're talking about your relationship with entrepreneurial failure or relational failure, or maybe you've been working on your diet, or you've been working on your health, or you've been working on having higher quality friendships or more opportunities in front of you, whatever you are working on, one of the biggest principles that I live by is that life is lived in pivot. We cannot go backwards. Recently I heard, I think it was the podcast, Modern Wisdom. I think that was the one where I heard it, is that we cannot split test life. And my take on that is you're always able to make a new decision and you can pivot from wherever you are. But you always are pivoting from where you are. Life is not a straight linear line, and there's no when I get to this destination, then I'm going to have, this achievement. We like to have these demarcation lines that we're working towards, I've done about 2 million in my business. So I'm looking at when do we get to 5? When do we get to 10? There's the next objective. There's the next goal. I've been married to my husband for, I think we're working on 14 years. So I'm thinking about when do we get to 20? It's natural to be thinking about those demarcation lines and those next lines of achievement. That being said, the truth of the matter is that we're in a flow. We're constantly moving. We're constantly on a path. So if you build in in principle 1, build in that time for reflection, realize you can make adjustments every single day, and you are making adjustments every single day. Your life is lived in pivot. So when you get conscious of if I make this adjustment that is in my favor to create more of what I want to see, and if you can have less it's about me, I'm a big failure, and that's why I'm not getting what I want in my life, and you can instead go, oh, I thought this was going to work the way that I intended. Turned out reality is different than my imagined reality, which is, we all start with imagined reality. Whenever we form a plan, we always project, this is how I think this is going to work out. And our mind is pretty good at starting with an initial hypothesis, but we have to start somewhere, right? So we start with an imagined hypothesis, and then we bang it up against the real world, and we get a data point. Now, here's where a lot of us really mess up. And I know for me, I totally messed this up. we get one or two or maybe 5 data points and we go, okay, that's enough evidence that, and I'm going to make that my new reality with 1, 2, or 5 data points. So, I had 5 or 10 kids be mean to me when I was a kid. So I was like, okay, all people are mean. That was like my paradigm. That's what I chose as my truth for the world. But because your life is able to be lived in a pivot, if you can allow yourself to get more data than 10 data points, try to go for 20, 50, as many data points as you can allow in, you start getting a better frame for how the world really is. And when you start understanding how the world really is, instead of your assumptions off of 1, 2, 5 data points, you start to realize, oh my gosh, I can make decisions and I can create paradigms in my life that are going to create more success for me. And I'm going to experience less perception of failure because I'm going to be able to make choices that are more in alignment with reality. And so if you think about what failure actually is, failure is when we set up a plan, we execute the plan, and we get a result that is different than what we expected to see. That's what failure actually is. And the reason why so many of us fail is because it's usually because we have an uninformed plan, right? And we have an uninformed plan simply because we've never done it before, or we've never been exposed to it before, or we're going into a growth area that we've never been in before. So if you just really think about what I'm saying here, most of the time we're informing our decisions by just a few data points based on how we grew up, or based on, where we've been working, or based on what's being, reinforced in our little tiny microcosm. There was a movie that Jim Carrey did several years ago that I often think about, which is The Truman Show. We all have like this little Truman Show, or if you really love movies, another one I love is The Matrix. We all have like our version of The Matrix, which is like a simulation of how reality actually is. And we're working with the data that we have. And because of our biases and because of how we think about how we confirm our biases and the way the brain works, when it comes to failure is really a perception of how we expected something to work out in the first place. So if you can change your relationship to what failure is, one of the biggest moves I've made, and then like this is fairly recent for me too, is I just said failure is failure. I have failed. And I take it all the way back to what was my original assumption when I launched the plan, when I launched the whole, hypothesis of what I was going to do. What was my expectation going into this whole thing? And so when I failed, I think what I was doing for a really long time is I was saying, oh, I failed. That means, I was using it as reinforcement of a lot of negative ideas that I had about myself. Oh, I failed. It means I'm lazy. Oh, I failed. It means that no one wants to support me. Oh, I failed. It means. And I was extrapolating like all of these ideas about my ego self. And that's getting back to point number 2. It both is and isn't about you. When I realized, I was like, wait a second. If I'm the one that's defining the plan and I'm the one that's defining success, I'm also the one that's defining failure. And if I can accept failure as failure is, I set a standard of performance that I wanted to achieve. We did fail. Not, oh, we didn't really fail because, and then make a whole bunch of excuses after that. No, we failed. We failed. We didn't make as much money as we expected to. We didn't get as many people signed up as we wanted to. We didn't get as many people to click the link. We didn't get, and like could actually accept that. But then at the same time, say, hey, life is lived in pivot. We can do something new. When I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so empowering because it's both about me and it's not about me because I get to take a new step. I get to recalibrate my plan. I get to take the information that I have gained from this experience and I get to do something else, but I also get to own my failure. And this has been so huge to increasing our profit, increasing the number of people who are following us, increasing the predictability in our business, not because we can tell the future. We absolutely cannot tell the future, but because we have a stronger base of knowledge that is more reliable, because we're not informing it by a whole bunch of, highly emotionally charged responses. So I hope this is making sense. Okay, idea number 4. Head in the clouds, boots on the ground. So what's this mean? So this is a principle I've used for years. So head in the clouds, boots on the ground is really talking about this idea that if you can, as an entrepreneur, and, I talk a lot about like entrepreneurship, building entrepreneurship through coaching, consulting, expertise, because that's what I know. But I mean, you could do this if you were a roofer or you were building a yoga studio. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, I'm talking about just general entrepreneurship. It also works if you are an employee, because here's what I advocate for. Do what matters, but when you're choosing what matters, it's on the basis of your vision for an amazing life. And so how do you decide like what's amazing for you? You get to choose what matters. You get to choose what matters. So you get to choose your vision for what's amazing. And I remember still deciding to become a mother and deciding to, get married to my husband, deciding to move from Canada to the United States. All of this was like years and years before I ever decided to become an entrepreneur. And to me, choosing entrepreneurship was in further alignment to my vision, head in the clouds. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to learn how to get leads, how to convert leads, how to serve with products, how to do all of this stuff. But what I for sure knew was I had like this vision of I'm going to be really present with my kids. I'm going to be super connected with my husband. I'm going to serve in my genius area. I'm going to have a greater impact on people. I'm going to be a speaker. I'm going to impact and influence people in a really positive way. I'm going to motivate. I'm going to be a positive influence, like head in the clouds stuff, and here's how you know if it's head in the clouds is when you're talking about it, people are like, yeah, okay. How are you going to do that? Like when you get people around you going like, yeah, okay, like how are you going to do that? And if you've got people saying, yeah, okay, how are you going to pay the bills, Amanda? How are you going to do that? Who's going to listen to you? And when the cynicism and the skepticism comes, from others or even from yourself, that's how you know you got your head in the clouds. And you want that. You want that because that's where your inspiration comes from. You want to be a dreamer. And if you want those dreams to come true, you got to have your boots on the ground. So what's boots on the ground? Boots on the ground is that you're able to ground yourself and center yourself and humble yourself into reality. So, oh my gosh, I got this idea from joining a mastermind, high performance mastermind years ago. And it's so funny because I got this idea of humble from Ethan Willis, who is like wildly successful entrepreneur, but he's like not a big influencer type. He works behind the scenes, and he's so super successful. And he taught me the meaning of the word humble while I was sitting on like the biggest yacht ever. Outside of Miami. So the juxtaposition of learning this was so perfect. I can't even begin to tell you. Humble means grounded to the earth. It means grounded to the earth. So Ethan was talking about being able to access your power through being humble. And so I just was talking about like being visionary, really being able to see a future that's not here, being able to see beyond your current circumstances. Yes. And also, boots on the ground. Being real about your bank account. Being real about your friend's account. Being real about how you treat people. Being real about how you're being treated. Being real about where you are. Humble. Humble does not mean small. It does not mean small. It doesn't mean powerless. It doesn't mean lack of influence. It doesn't mean those things. I thought that it did. I thought that humble means that you shrink. And that's not what it means. It means that you're grounded and real. And Ethan also taught me to think about numbers as a way to lead. And like he was the first leader to really like get it through my skull, which is so funny because I'm a chemical engineer. I mean, I kind of get the idea about process and numbers and all that kind of thing. But for me to really integrate it into like, oh, this is how I use this as a decision maker, as a leader. I have to credit Ethan Willis with that. Like I really, really got it. And so finding that balance point allows you to fail. Because if you can have your boots on the ground and realize, again, it is and it isn't you, your willingness to tolerate failure in service of the vision, your willingness to accept and allow the feedback. Because the thing is that any vision that you have, again, we imagine it at first, and it comes from somewhere else. And we have to stitch that vision into the fabric of reality. And so if you don't have a realistic view of the world, but a lot of people confuse realism with cynicism or pessimism. And they think, oh, I'm being realistic, by choosing a small target, or I'm being realistic by being really negative and sounding like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. No, you're not being realistic. You're being negative. There's a difference. There's a big difference. You're being disconnected from your power. You're being disconnected from your capacity and your potential. And there's a huge difference between those two things. Realism is about being brave enough to measure and to reflect and to write things down and to be wrong. I had a coaching session just yesterday where I declared a confidence that I had, a 9 out of 10 confidence that I had on a strategy that I then slept on. And I was like, ooh, maybe it was more like an 8. Maybe I was feeling really uncomfortable with some things that have been happening lately. And again, it's that space to reflect. It's okay to get new data. It's okay to reground yourself into what's going on. It's both you and it's not you. Okay, idea number 5. Idea number 5 is that you need network to accomplish anything. So much of your perceived entrepreneurial failure is really that you're not supported. Your dream is not supported. You are not supported. And so when I see people struggling, it's usually because they don't believe that anyone would support their vision. And very often your vision is supportive of other people's vision. And one of the best pieces of advice I got in my second year as a consultant. And it was, Amanda, make sure that when you are networking and connecting with people, that you network and connect up, down, and sideways. I'm like, up, down, and sideways? What does that mean? And up, down, and sideways means make sure that you have mentorship and people who are going to give you opportunities moving up in your vision and your goals. Make sure that you have people who are going to work for you, that are going to support you, that are coming up in their own journey. So make sure you're giving those opportunities. So if you're an entrepreneur, do you have internship opportunities? Do you have junior opportunities in your company that people could be working for you? And then sideways, do you have friends? Do you have peers? Do you have people who are building things just like you are, or are you living in isolation? So this is a huge idea, but a lot of times, again, you're setting the standard for success. You're also the one setting the standard for failure. One of the most powerful things you can do is have network so that you can actually see, oh, look what other people are doing. So it'll inform your standard. And by the way, if your standard is too low, take a look at your network. Take a look at your network. Are you surrounding yourself with peers that challenge you and call you up? Or are you surrounding yourself by people that have too low of a standard for your level of ambition? So that is a really powerful question to ask yourself. Final big idea today is to integrate, celebrate, and recalibrate. So failure, again, is part of it. We're failing every day. I fail at like 10 things a day, so many things, but I also win at 10 things a day, every day. It's really about shifting the relationship with failure. So integrating means pulling in, oh yeah, I did make that decision. Oh, right, I did ensure this thing moved forward. Celebrating the wins, celebrating the progress, celebrating the connection, being in fulfillment. That's worth doing. And so many people hold like the carrot out in front of them forever. And they're like, I will celebrate when I'm dead. And it's like, okay, you can do that. I once dated a guy who he was convinced that all of his life was going to be lived after retirement. And I was like, okay, so you're going to basically go through the motions of life for the next 40 years, and then you're going to celebrate the life that you've had? No, thank you. I mean, like he can do that. That's totally fine. But that's why we never really went any further. You've got to celebrate the journey. Like the journey is the destination. You're not guaranteed that you're going to have more time. It's really how you play the game. It's not whether you win or whether you lose. And of course it's fun to win, but it's more about, did you win the practice? Did you win each set? Did you win each day? Like, how are you doing every week? How are you doing compared to last time? This next coming week, I'm hosting the Coaches Plaza Days Away for the 7th time. And you know what? One of my big wins, I went and got my hair cut. Like now, I'm a whole week ahead. And I'm thinking, damn, girl, you're like killing it this time. Because usually I think of my hair and I'm like, oh no. And it's like either doesn't happen or it's a rush appointment before and I'm like super stressed out. No, I won, baby. Like I got that thing booked ahead of time and I'm feeling good. I got supplies ordered way ahead of time. I've got my speakers lined up way ahead of time. I know what's happening way ahead. Like so much more organized on event number 7, than I was on event number 1. Event number 1, hot mess. There was a lot of failure in event number 1. And I learned from those failures. And here's what happened next, right? Is I was able to integrate those failures and turn them into lessons. But you know what? There was a lot of wins in number 1 too. And it led me to doing event number 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. So here we are on event number 7, and I'm so excited to be doing it. If you loved this week's show, it was a little longer, but I wanted to take the time to really help you think about failure is inevitable because you're going to hold yourself to a standard, and that's a good thing. And it's about how quick do you rebound? How quick do you get back in the game? How quick do you keep moving forward? And how supported are you on that journey? If you love this, make sure you share it with 3 friends, and you are so welcome to come and join us in our free community, the Coaches Plaza. We do formal training every Tuesday where you can join the rest of the community. You can join our dream team. You can ask us any questions. If you're building a coaching, course creation business, you do want to be a part of this community. We have all kinds of free goodies in there. Come join us at www.thecoachesplaza.com. If you're on Instagram, check out my link in bio. You can come and join us there, or you can click our link around this video and you can come and join us. Thank you so much.